Hello dear friends, so the blue arrow on this chart says we're here now, so where have we reached year and a half later? Well, for most people on Earth, the last year was more relaxed compared to pandemic times, but it is not sure that it was planned to be that way by the parasites. Maybe they simply couldn't infect enough people with monkeypox. Maybe it didn't spread the way they expected. Or possibly they wanted to create the false relaxation atmosphere so that they can do their important preparation work undisturbed. A major achievement milestone for them was mid-December when 119 countries signed the 30 by 30 plan. It means that 30% of all ocean and seas surface and 30% of all lands on Earth will be given free gift to the parasites. The United Nations, the World Economic Forum, they all must have full possession of it by the end of year 2030. What are they gonna do exactly with it? We know only the beginning, as usual. In the past they have also seized land under the excuse of protecting biodiversity and nature. That means killing off the indigenous people who did not vacate the place immediately. And once they clean off 1/3 of the earth from humans, what will they do exactly with it? Patch of land? We don't know. Will they just breed their cyborgs? Will they use them for strategic military bases? Or just keep them for frivolous excursions for them, the special servants of the Jal? They don't think it's necessary for us to know. That's why they are already working on the laws of how to restrict, how much we can move. Yeah. For climate change, of course, all that will be to save CO2. That's how they imagine the future. Sadly, they didn't invite Christ when they were making their plans. He would have given them wiser advice, but, well, anyhow, and if you remember, they were telling us about power outages in the winter since summer. We're well into the winter. There aren't any. To the point they had to hire street vandals to vandalize 2 times power stations in United States, so that at least some people will be left without electricity for some time. That comes across somewhat desperate, I would say. So what about the Dajjal character? We will not have to wait long. It is just a matter of time before a courageous leader from the Middle East steps out from the shadows to sign up that famous peace treaty mentioned in the Bible, after which the Third World War will erupt. The quote was from this United Nations persona. While at the same time the biggest rabbis in the region are afraid even to leave their country for trouble, not to miss out when he comes. Some of them assure the nation that everything will be as predicted and that they are personally in touch with him already. One of the hundreds of billboards across the country urging to do good deeds to hasten the coming. Good deeds, of course, has different definitions in different places. And as far as the social law enforcement structure, which will be enforcing the religion of the Dajjal, the Islam or whatever the ecumenical thing, their headquarters are nearing completion or are just complete these days. So those will be the official headquarters of satanic worship. And as far as the temple in Jerusalem, which is often mentioned in the prophecies, that should be ready by mid-tribulation. And according to the Middle Eastern prophecies, it will be the Dajjal himself who will play a role in getting all that ready. So that temple will be ready somewhere between his public appearance and his coronation, which will be mid-tribulation. So most likely he will reveal himself within a couple of years when they complete this global social credit system with passes and certificates for various places. The more you believe in their lies and paradigm, the higher score you get. It's a multi-factor rating. It's not something simple like the fixed certificate which one could buy for $20. So those who have not switched yet to self-sufficient life in the countryside may find it very hard or impossible very soon to live normal lives. And now the German health minister, really an adult person could say thing, climate change, he says, is the root of all health crises, current and future. To get high social score, you will have to not only show firm belief in this type of nonsense, but also act according to it. So if you're still in a city, soon you will be forced to show wholehearted support for their insanity, or you will not be given one of those passes which you have to scan to enter the supermarket. Somebody reported recently from a major Dutch city. What they did, they encircled the city with camps, living quarters almost, made of quickly shipped metal containers for storing people inside, people of color. So they stack them on the top of one another and it becomes something like a building. So they pack the people inside and then fence the entire complex with very high security. For every door one needs a special card otherwise to scan, otherwise one cannot pass. And the entire compound, the local people who are providing this with of course their taxpayer money, they can't really enter unless they show evidence that they have got some particular job to do there, and then they're issued a temporary pass with which they can pass through the doors. We know since years that this is a way to import criminal elements from other regions of the world to Europe and also to America, because they specifically target the descendants of the Muzungus, or what I have been calling survivors, and some old European books refer to them as Resseanami. So as far as importing such elements, of course they selected people who already had such inclinations as such. But the thing is, now when they put them in a confined space, they know that currently over there they had their gangs, and mainly they were fighting with each other, the gangs. In their villages, the gang would be in the other village or across the mountain, but here the other gang is in the next room or in your room in these camps. So that's how hatred and desperation and anger escalate. And of course, exactly at the right moment, the so-called religious preacher will come and give them hints where to vent that anger. So lately, they have organized the import of this type of army on unprecedented scale, but just because it's old news, people don't give it much attention. And they think it will be always like this, where these people were very few, they were creating disturbance, but still life was bearable. And now, when they started importing entire proper army divisions at once, people simply do nothing. And what can you do? You can watch the entire End Times series very carefully and move to the countryside. And during the New Year's Eve, we got some sort of preview. What are they importing all these armies for? In Germany, especially in Berlin, in France, in Sweden, probably many other places as well. Unprecedented violence, thousands of cars burned, murders, violent attacks on people. And at least in Berlin, it wasn't actually chaotic, it was pre-planned and determined. They were targeting especially policemen. What is this all about? Well, they don't let you waste time with reading the entire article. They give you the solution easily in the headline. This is prompting calls for harsher penalties and more video surveillance. So they say that in the article that the government says the punishments will be harsher. I'm not sure what that means, because like a couple of years ago, when this type of violence escalated, they sent local women to give roses to the men who were doing the crimes. So I'm not sure. Harsher means like maybe they will give them double amount of roses this time, or will they reduce the number of roses by 2? Or maybe there is another meaning, like in German they actually punish only the people who point out the violence, not the those who commit it. So maybe the harsher penalties are for those who speak out the truth about the violence. That was not made clear by the Deutsche Welle article. And also in prophecies which were made way before the entire story with importing armies in this way started, even at that time they pointed France and Germany as the spots where this problem will be worst. And in England, of course, they have no time and money to investigate crime like stabbing people with knives. But they have all the resources to paint the police cars, to make them look like this, and spend quite a few thousands on like shoelaces and face rainbow paints and all kinds of ribbons, outfits and flags with which to entertain the police officers. The government even put it on the loudspeakers that we are here, we're queer, get used to it. And I heard about 2 more interesting prophecies from the Bulgarian prophet Vanga, which I did not include in the episode with this type of prophecies. First of all, she said that at the time when the water starts disappearing in the ground, at that time gold will start coming out of the ground. The Islamic prophecies mention that during the end times Euphrates will dry up, which has already happened in many areas, and a mountain of gold will appear. In Africa, this could be the beginning of this type of emerging of gold. Yet another prophecy from Vanga is connected with the place of Rupite, where she would accept people while she was alive. They are healing mud springs over there, and she explicitly said that their water should not be sold, should not be used commercially, and if people begin to do that, the water will disappear. I don't know if she meant that particular spring only, or all water will start disappearing, but the thing is that exactly in that tiny valley is just a very small extinct volcano crater, couple of hundred of meters of diameter, nothing big. Practically 50 meters away from those small mud springs, they're completing now the construction of a huge spa hotel where they will offer, of course, the water commercially. So yet one more sign that the times are very, very near. So, three sources, Vyacheslav, Vanga, and the Islamic prophecies speak about the appearance of gold coming out of the earth during the end times. And now miscellaneous topics, follow-ups from previous videos on addictions, on crystals, on prepping, and user questions. Now, a lot has been said about sugar addiction, but easier said than done. So previously I could recommend only stevia, but now, recently by chance, I discovered another less known plant, which is not only sweet, but also tasty. It's just very nice. It's not at all like the stevia. And as a bonus, the Lipia dulcis contains camphor. Camphor is a well-known antidote for evil spirits, for shamans all over the world, from the Eastern cultures all the way to the Native American cultures. And that's why they have been doing their best to demonize it. In some countries it is even forbidden to consume it under various lousy excuses, like for example that somebody may get addicted, while at the same time they encourage and legislate special laws for protecting other addictive substances, but only those which are connected to evil spirits. They even make it look like some sort of lethal substance, although it's just a guess. I couldn't find any reports of somebody actually dying, but they have even information of lethal doses such that they can cause death. Well, small brackets, of course this is just a guess, it's not really something which they really know, but when it reaches the mass media, the fantasized amounts are sometimes multiplied few hundred times to make it look really dangerous. And that's how they have managed to take away camphor from the lives of the people, and they're using the same approach for other sattvic substances. And two updates on prepping. In previous videos I promoted the idea to make a small chicken shed for eggs, so that one can look after a couple of chicken. So I did that myself, and my conclusion is that this is not advisable for everybody. I would recommend it only for those who already have some experience with this, or people who are well familiar with village life at least, because a newcomer to self-sufficient living like myself, it just took me too much energy and resources and time to complete all this, and then it turned out it's not as easy to care for chicken as I thought. But then it was too late to put an end to the project, and I still decided to take them, and they took too much of my time and energy. It's not, at least for me, it is not worth it. And the second remark on prepping is that I forgot to recommend actually buying wheat, which if it is properly stored will also last 20 years easily. By properly stored, it is meant vacuum or airtight packing with oxygen absorbers inside. Of course, the perfect would be vacuum packing with oxygen absorbers, but in both cases, wheat will also last. Preferably, you purchase just plain wheat from local farmer. They would sell it as food for animals. That has probably least chances of having some chemicals on it. That costs still cents per kilo, and one day, in case of extreme food shortages, it can be boiled or simply sprouted. And humanity has ended in this predicament for the simple lack of in-depth understanding about the enemy who is overtaking Earth. Let's see as an example an article. These are the credentials of the author first. PhD in Philosophy of Creativity. It's an alternative media article, it's not mainstream. And as you see, here she calls the Satanists WEF, transhumanists, suitable name, will fail to hack humans because of the complexities of human nature, such as free will. So what she says in the title is absolutely true. We know that's what will happen because of the prophecies, but the catch, which she also does not understand, even the author doesn't understand, is that this will give too many people confidence to march into the hellish path, and the human race will be saved, but it will be without them. Apparently the author even teaches entire courses on this counteracting the transhumanism, but I don't know how effective they could be, because all her teachings are based on the presumption that these people, the Satanists, they are just too simplistic, and they simply have no clue about the nature of mass events and the nature of the human psyche. But if you read the article of the lady, actually she's the one who has much less clue about these very same things. And it is the Satanists who are directed in a much more clever way, because their head, Satan, his incapabilities, in magical capabilities and understanding how karma works, he's a few levels above human race, so he has this advantage of knowing more and being able to trick people very, very skillfully. I mean, just see how well are they prepared. They started planting their, for example, climate change lies decades ago, and now only they are beginning to harvest the results of that. And this PhD lady is preaching that they simply don't understand free will. That's what they understand best. That's why they make the people themselves to embrace satanic features of all type. Satanic holidays, like for example the current version of Halloween. God knows what was the origin. Maybe there was something good and they turned into this. The satanic dirty language and all the other tamasic traits and qualities and patterns of behavior, just because they very well understand what is free will, and they're preparing, grooming the people from all sides, so that at the end they will sing and chant "We love you, Dajjal," without anybody forcing them at all, by their own free will. Something else from the article, I personally find it childishly naive. She says so many aspects of the economy and the society hinge upon the present system, and when that is disassembled, it will be a devastating shock, and the outcome will be impossible for them to control, even with all their economic powers. Really? How does she know? I mean, after their decades of preparation, of private armies, some of them secret, some of them not so secret, they're not just foolishly creating economic chaos. They are dismantling the current system to put in place the new one, which they're also preparing since decades. They started with the digital currencies, bitcoins, this type of stuff. Of course, at the very end of the tribulation, when they're without any food and water, then they will be not in control. But there are years until then, and during most of the tribulation, they will be in full control, almost full, pretty much in the way they are now. Their control is not going to diminish. They're just beginning with establishing police states. She is grossly underestimating the enemies of the human race, and that can be dangerously misleading. And the reason for which this lady doesn't seem to get it at all is not because she didn't learn properly in school when she was becoming a PhD, but probably just because she did learn well what they were teaching her, because what they teach in the universities is not the truth about the nature of the human psyche and the nature of the mass events. And the nature of black magic also, which is a very, very relevant topic, which must be understood properly for one to understand the current situation. And black magic is not something from the fairy tales. Those who touch some sort of connection or the other to somewhat traditional societies know that these things work. And what we experience now is a black magic onslaught of unprecedented scale. Just the entire humanity being the target. Actually, the middle paragraph, which you now see on the screen, that is absolute truth. But we should not make presumptions that because some of the paragraphs in a given article are true, all the rest is true as well. Because knowledge will save us. Knowledge is sattva. And if one wants to know the real mysteries of the human psyche, then one should carefully listen to all the books on the Team Hard Heart channel. And just a small update on those who followed the earlier series on crystals, and I recommended one seller who was selling very nice crystals, but they were like very small, the pieces were very small. And I finally found somewhat kind of acceptable in terms of elegance, and definitely very easy and cheap to make way to wear them. Just put them in these small flexible tubes, and that's it. It can be worn as braces, necklaces, or at night as headbands. The question is which mantras am I chanting personally? Certainly the main ones are in the video called Do Vedic Mantras Work for Western People? So where can you find them in pure source? That can mean lots of things, pure source, but Hanuman Chalisa, that is Sabri mantra, and I think you can get the text anywhere. And as far as the others, I don't know, I got them from one Pandit, but I'm not in touch with him anymore. I couldn't find the contact with him. Here they have a collection, small collection of mantras, but it seems they take care to write them properly and give some explanation of the ritual in an understandable manner. And I actually got in touch with them in 2-3 years ago, because they offer some sort of initiations. They seemed reliable, and I was inquiring if they could initiate me in certain mantras, but all of their gurus, they were proud that all of them are fully vaccinated, and that was the end of my inquiry. Now I don't look for any more initiations. I personally have a collection of mantras. Always when I find something interesting, I write it down, and then I print it on paper to have it in future. But I rarely use those extra mantras for practical daily things. If there is particular matter at hand, usually I would use Hanuman Chalisa. because I have noticed that chanting it even once for a given issue, there is usually a response. In India in general, probably Hanuman is the most widely worshipped deity, and Hanuman Chalisa is considered the most powerful Sabri mantra in general, and probably there is a reason for it, and that is my personal observation as well. The difficulty with it probably will be to memorize it. It's rather long. And hopefully I will manage to make the video, since I'm planning that for a long time with those extra printed mantras as well. And the next user question about loneliness and porn. So all these things, loneliness and porn addiction, they're a result of some sort of non-sattvic mixtures in the personality. And if one cannot uproot them if one cannot resolve both problems just by wishing so and applying reasonable endeavor for it, that means that one needs to work on the qualities, which will be different for different people, which cause that, especially loneliness. That means that there are certain parts of your personality which you cannot stand. That's why many people are frightened by loneliness. This doesn't mean that it is sattvic as such to live alone as an owl. Just on the opposite, people are created by God to live in couples, in families, in societies, in communities. But when one happens for one reason or another to be alone, and that makes one miserable or scared or uncomfortable, that means that there are traits in the personality which are undesirable. So the more sattvic one becomes, the less one will feel lonely when one is without a company. As it is said in the prophecies, there will be no true people of pure virtue alive during the end times, among the ordinary people at least. All of those who will go through it will be repentant sinners who want to quickly get purified from whatever anchors they have to tamas, and that means that everybody who is incarnated during these times will go through some misery or another. But it will come in different forms. For some it will be health, for others poverty, others will be constantly troubled by enemies, yet others may find loneliness to be the main problem.
Nesbra, 500 years ago, Ursula Servile was reported to have known something about the future. The king sent all his horses to go and investigate. Knock, knock, knock. Ursula, otherwise known as Mother Shipton, answered the door in a daily fashion and told them to sling the rocks. Carried on writing poems, special poems, poems that would be read 500 years later. prophecy. Now a word in uncouth rhyme of what shall be in future time. Then upside down the world shall be, and gold found at the root of tree. All England's sons that plough the land should oft be seen with book in hand. The poor shall now great wisdom know, great houses standing in far-flung vale, all covered over with snow and hail. A carriage without horse will go, disaster fill the world with woe. In London Primrose Hell shall be the centre hold the bishop's see. Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye. And water shall great wonders do, how strange, and yet it shall come true. Through towering hills proud men shall ride, no horse or ass moved by his side. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk. And in the air men shall be seen in white and black and even green. A great man then shall come and go, for prophecy declares it so. In water iron then shall float, as easy as a wooden boat. Gold shall be seen in stream and stone, in land that is yet unknown. England shall admit a Jew. You think this strange, but it is true. The Jew that once was held in scorn shall of a Christian then be born. A house of glass shall come to pass in England, but alas, alas, a war will follow with the work where dwells the pagan and the Turk. These states will lock in fiercest strife and seek to take each other's life. When north shall thus divide the south, an eagle build in lion's mouth. Then tax and blood and cruel war shall come to every humble door.